In this session, we're going to be talking about how anxiety operates. We're going to have Dr. Cath Thorlakson joining us, and she's going to be discussing adrenaline and the effects that has on our body.
So I want to talk about anxiety a little bit. Anxiety has some common markers, but there's lots of different kinds of anxiety. So just to name a few, agoraphobia. That is where I am anxious about being in too big of spaces, too small spaces, spaces where I feel like I cannot escape from. Social anxiety, I'm more worried about interactions with people and whether people are judging me, and it goes to a more extreme. We all worry about what people think of us, or most of us do, but it goes to a more extreme place and starts to impact my function. There's general anxiety. That's probably the most common one that I see, where a person just feels anxious. I don't know why I feel anxious. I just feel anxious. I will be in the middle of somewhere, and we're going to get into panic attacks a little bit in a few minutes. But it's just general. I know it's not logical, but I just feel anxious. It's general. And then you have what we call specific phobias. So it can be phobias in regard to height or spiders or different circumstances. So there's all kinds of things that we can have anxiety about. But you still have these core things that go on with anxiety. And the more they increase, the longer they go, the more away from your norm they get, the more concerned we are about the anxiety. And the more it will bother you, actually, if it's getting more and more. So the first thing that a person with anxiety will be going through is restlessness, feeling keyed up or on edge. I just can't sit still. I've got to move. Now, some of us naturally don't sit still very well. Again, we're talking about your normal. So if you're saying to me, I feel restless, that might look different on you than it does on me. But it's moving from your normal, feeling keyed up, or I'm feeling on edge about things. Easily fatigued. So a person that is spending a lot of energy on being anxious might find that they just easily get tired. I just can't take this anymore. I can't go through this anymore. You need several of these symptoms all put together for it to be considered anxiety. If you're easily fatigued, it could be something physical like a thyroid or something. I'm not a medical person, but it could be something physical, or it could be just as a result of sleep. So we're kind of putting anxiety, depression, those mental health disorders are based on a cluster of symptoms. And so we need to add a certain amount up to be able to say this is actually anxiety. And now we're starting to get repetitive. Difficulty concentrating or a blank mind. Burnout, anxiety, they can go together, or one can lead to the other. Irritability, muscle tension, sleep difficulty. Now I'm really getting repetitive, right? Because that's all those things, but it's a certain constellation of those symptoms that all come together. When somebody's anxious, they can tell me they are feeling anxious. Sometimes they may tell me they also are feeling depressed, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So that's anxiety. So you start to have those kind of things going on. It starts to sound a little bit like the sympathetic nervous system. Anxiety that keeps going sometimes, and not uncommonly, can lead to panic attacks. That really is a very functional system that's gone off the charts. So when I get under stress, what's happening inside is I have this cascade of emotion, or of hormones that are cascading from my hypothalamus down to my adrenal glands, where the adrenaline, cortisol is released. And so I have this cascade that happens that sets my body into an adrenalized state, that I'm ready to run away from the bear. Right? That's called the HPA axis, and that's stress related. When that happens, and it's time for the threat to be done, or the threat ends, the cortisol releases, and it actually goes back up and shuts that system off again. It's like a shut-off valve. And so we can go into the parasympathetic system. What happens with the panic attack is that shut-off system doesn't work right. And so I go into that panic and it just won't stop. So it goes real high. And so when the adrenaline takes over and I find myself in a panic attack, palpitations can be happening. My heart is pounding. My heart rate is way up. It's pounding hard and it's increased in its rate. I might start to sweat. These are some of the symptoms. I might start to sweat. My body is just overworking itself. People talk about shaking or just a trembling that can go on in the hands or in the extremities. Some people will feel shortness of breath or just feel like they're smothering and they just can't breathe. Sometimes you'll see a physical reaction on the outside to that. Some people feel like they're choking, or their pain hurts, or they just feel discomfort. People sometimes think that they're dying when they're going through some of this because I must be having a heart attack, I must be dying, and they end up in emergency. Commonly, they end up in emergency. Some people get nauseous, feel like they're going to throw up. Sometimes I think they might throw up, or just your abdomen ends up just not feeling well, not healthy. And there's the fear of dying in that list as well. So that the sympathetic system ramps up and just keeps running and running and running. And we call it a panic attack. It doesn't feel good. If I'm running away from a bear, it's adaptive. It's a good thing. But when it's just that system's not shutting off and it's just running and running and running, that's not so good. That's a panic attack. So I want to talk a little bit about the anxiety curve. And that is not a good experience to go through. Here's my pen. So I'm going to, you will see in mental health stuff a lot of U's in terms of motivation, in terms of anxiety, in terms of a lot of different things. With anxiety, it's a U that goes this way. It's an inverted U. So what can happen with anxiety is sometimes I start to feel anxious. The anxiety is going up and it feels like it's going to go up forever, which is a panicky kind of thing. The truth is that anxiety actually can curve and go back down again. There's the hope again. We can get some control over anxiety, and I think this whole video series that we have is, some of it is going to tell you a little bit more about how to do that. So it can be in a curve, but we've found out that adrenaline can keep just going on and on and on unless we do something to slow it down. Sometimes when we're feeling anxiety, and it's like it's going to go on forever. So example, if I am afraid riding on the bus, a city bus, because I feel like there's no way of escape, and so I'm highly anxious when I'm riding on a bus. Sometimes what I see happening is people get to a certain point, they get on the bus, they ride past 2 or 3 stops, and then it's like, I just can't do this anymore. And so they get off the bus, and the anxiety goes back down to 0. But then what happens the next time they get on the bus? They go, I can't do this anymore. And they get off the bus. Anxiety goes down to 0. But what can happen is this can become a loop. And just like you see as I'm drawing the loop, that is getting darker and darker, that line is getting stronger and stronger. It's the same with the anxiety. As I get on the bus, say I can't do the anxiety anymore, I get off again and decrease the anxiety to 0, the next time it's going to happen again and again. And I end up in this loop that's strong and really situated. What's happening here is my no is getting stronger. My get off the bus, my avoidance is getting stronger. And my yes, I can do this is getting weaker and weaker. And so in a sense, we need to exercise our yes muscles. I'm going to do this. I can do this. Sometimes we do that in a graded kind of way. So we might say, Okay, if you're making it to bus stop 3, why don't we increase that to 4 and then to 5? And we manage anxiety while we're doing that so that a person feels better and better, able to do it. So they can go longer, they can go farther, and eventually we can get that anxiety to level out as we use some strategies for doing that. I want to use this for one more reason. You might notice that I've put a dotted line in here. So let's say that this is me, and this one is you, anybody that's listening. So my anxiety levels, just for example, sit at a 5 normally. Yours sit at 0 normally. So if I experience something that is about a 10 out of 10 for fear for me, when I go up 10 points, that would lead me to a 15 out of 10, because I'm taking that 10 points and adding it to my 5. When you go through it, you're adding your 10 to 0. So for you, the same stressor with the same amount of fear leads you up to a 10 out of 10. For me, because I'm starting 5 higher, leads me up to a 15 out of 10, because I'm starting at a higher level of anxiety. So what do we do about that? We want to bring this level down. That's lifestyle. So if I'm doing things to generally take care of myself in my lifestyle, I'm bringing that anxiety level down. Therefore, when the stress comes on, when the distress comes on, and I've got difficult things that I'm facing, the stress level doesn't go as high as it did if I started out at a higher level. That's making a case for lifestyle. I'm going to come back to that later. Just want to put that into that picture. Excuse me. So, physiology of anxiety, basically what I've been saying is when anxiety gets high physiologically, what's happening is the systems are revving too much. There's too much adrenaline that's going on. And the difference is going to be the way that I'm thinking about the stress. And so I want to work on my mind and on the way that I'm thinking about it. So, thinking about anxiety, here's 4 things that I want you to remember. First thing, anxiety is treatable. You are not necessarily subject to anxiety, which makes me want to race down to number 3 to say the goal is not to feel anxiety, but I'm not going to race down there right now. I'm just going to say there's something that you can do about anxiety. I just talked about one thing, is just a healthy lifestyle that just brings your anxiety levels down. Second thing, anxiety will not kill you or damage you. Over the long term, it has negative implications for your health. But in the short term, it's not going to kill you or damage you. You're going to live through this and you can get past this. Hopefully it brings you into the office or into the friendship of somebody that can help you get through it. Third thing is the goal when we're dealing with anxiety is not to feel anxious at all. It's not 0 anxiety. That is not our goal. If we don't feel anxiety, that means our sympathetic system isn't working. We need our sympathetic system working. That is our alert that something needs to be looked at. There's a reason why our bodies go into this. And they can be, that's why I tell you about the symptoms of anxiety, because that stuff can get dealt with. It's our warning system. So we do want to be able to feel some anxiety. Anxiety is actually adaptive. There's a reason for it. And it's helpful. It's functional. But we want to manage it in a healthy and a positive way. So that's going to be managing it physically, emotionally, and relationally, whichever way needs the attention in each time.
Thank you for joining us for this mental health session. If you want more information on mental health and free resources and videos, go ahead and click the subscription button below. And we will be updating this channel regularly with professional counselors and psychologists coming in to give you mental health information. Additionally, if you're struggling with the topic discussed in this video, there is a link in the description box below. If you click that, it will link you into our website, and you can scroll down to the contact button. The contact button will pull up an email where you can contact us, and we will begin to work with you in seeking out the helps that you need for whatever it is that you're facing. We'll look at getting you counseling, treatment, whatever it is. We want to help you on your journey to better mental health.